Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today I'm actually bringing you 6, not 5 boards in a big roundup for the X870 and X870E motherboard launch. Now we did have the CPUs go live a few weeks back now, and all of those videos and reviews are live on the channel and on the website should you want to go and take a look. I've also done previews on the boards as well. So if you want to go and have a much more of an in-depth look around the board and get a feel for where everything is, has it got enough USBs for you, for example, is the layout correct for you, then I've done much more in-depth stuff. But these have all been tested. Technically, we need to imagine that there's an Aorus master box here because I have tested it, but it had to go before being able to film the entire batch of videos because it's gone off to another media. Now, something to clear up is at the start when we were reviewing the 9000 series processors, more the second batch, so the 9900X and the 9950X, there was a lot of hoo-ha about performance being down and there being a lot of latency between the CCXs. Now, at the time, AMD did say to us that we needed to be on a newer version of Windows, and the problem was Windows. Well, since then, in the testing that I've been doing, in the research that I've been doing, for me, Windows really didn't make enough of a difference. The problem was AMD, when they send us stuff, there's a thing online called Box, and it's where they share all the reviewers' guides, the drivers that they want us to use, and everything. And we always get told, stick to what's on Box. Well, I ended up putting 24H2 on a system with all of the stuff that AMD linked us to originally, and my performance was probably within about 1%, maybe 2% the same. So not enough of a difference at all, specifically with the gaming results. But then what I did is I went and downloaded the driver from the AMD website rather than Box, because the one on the AMD website looked like it was a bit newer. And lo and behold, the chipset driver unlocked all the performance that I was missing with the original CPU reviews. So then that led me to work backwards, and then I went back to 23H2 without any of the AMD specific add-on Windows update things, just a normal 23H2. It was actually what I was reviewing on before. And then I updated the chipset driver on that, and all of my performance increased. I could swap the CPUs in between, I had no problems. The problem for me all along was the driver that AMD put on Box was old and wasn't coping with the multi-CCXs. I'm not sure if that's what other people have found, that's what I found. So all I'm going to say to you is, if you buy one of these boards, please, 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 and it's the reason why I've said this at the start, go onto the AMD website and get the most recent driver. Do not use the one from the boards, don't worry about it. Go and manually select the most recent driver, because if you are going to end up gaming on one of these boards, it will be the most important thing that you need to do. And second place is just going to be making sure that you enable XMP or Expo in the BIOS. Now, we have a large selection of boards, like Elite and Tomahawk being one of the lower end ones, and then we've got expensive boards like the Carbon and the Master, with probably the most expensive one being the Hero. But at the time of filming, which is the day before launch, none of the brands have given us prices yet. Now, there was a lot of hoo-ha about the Hero possibly being £750. Do you know what? I don't know. I'm probably going to have to do a completely separate video about prices. But I think without knowing prices, you're going to get a gut feeling for what you want to buy today anyway, just with the information that I am going to be able to give you. Don't forget what I said though. When we boil things down, you can go and have a look at very up close and personal videos of the Tomahawk, of the Carbon, of the Hero. They're already live on the channel, and full write-ups live on the website as well. Now, there is a not a massive amount of difference with power delivery on the boards in reality. Like the Hero and the Strix, for example, are both 18 plus 2 plus 2 power stages, and they're both 110 amps. So with the limited information that I've got available from ASUS, because I don't have a specific part breakdown, they've got exactly the same power delivery on them. So when it comes to the Strix and the Hero, the choice between these two in reality, I would say, is going to be price and layout. Because when it comes to the lighting on the top left-hand side of the Hero, I'm not actually that big of a fan of it, if I'm honest. If that board does come out being 700 plus, then I think that should have been almost a flipping LCD screen up in the top corner that you could have put whatever you wanted on it, not just a selection of lights that changes. It doesn't, it beggars belief. And if anything, I'm going to say I prefer the aesthetic of the VRM on the Strix. When it comes over to the Tomahawk and the Carbon, there is more of a difference though, because the Tomahawk is 14 plus 2 plus 1, and that's only 80 amps, which later on when we get to the performance testing, I think you're going to have a little bit of an eye-opener with the spec of this and then how well it performs. The Carbon is 18 plus 2 plus 2, but that is 110. Master was 16 plus 2 plus 2, 110. So if you think about that, it's only got a couple more than the Tomahawk in reality. The Elite though was 16 plus 2 plus 2, but no amps on the website, so we don't know. This could be the same as the Master. I very much doubt it though. I'm going to put my bet on the Elite being 80 or 90 amps, but there's no information on the website. No information that I've been sent has told me how many amps were available on these. Now they all do 2 PCI Express 5, 2 PCI Express 4 minimum. You can sometimes have extra NVMEs on board if you want. Not if you want, but if they've allowed it. But the more NVMEs you're going to have on the board, the more they're going to have spent elsewhere. I think it was the Strix, for example, had 3 PCI Express 2s on the bottom of the board rather than just 2, because they can move where they want to use the bandwidth accordingly. I'm going to suggest that as far as Ethernet is concerned, for the most of you, 2.5 gig is going to be enough. I very much doubt many of you are going to have 2.5 gig Ethernet requirements for your actual internet. The Ethernet won't affect your internet unless you're on 2.5 gig plus inbound or outbound. I've only got a 1 gigabit package at home, so I get like 945 meg in, 945 meg out, dead stable. So technically, I'm more than capable just to run a 1 gig on my board. So 2.5 is loads. 2.5 and 5G Ethernet is more for internal networking. If you're wired and you've got a network set up at home. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't really need to worry about it. They've all got very good Wi-Fi 7 on them. So for those of you out there that have got or run Wi-Fi at home, you just need to make sure that you get a decent amount of signal where you're based. I'd stay away from extenders and stuff though, because it's just going to add latency. But if you can with gaming, wired is always going to be best. So not a humongous amount in reality to pull between them, because they've all got 2 USB 4s on them, which are 40 gig. They've normally got a third USB-C on them, which is 10. And if you go back and look at the actual breakdowns that I've done, sometimes the back panels is the bit that I'd really end up choosing between them. The Tomahawk and the MSI were both ones that I particularly liked with the back panel, but the one on the Carbon, out of all of them, was the one that actually made it stand out to me like they'd really made an effort for a change, was what was around the back and how it was laid out. Now, performance. And this is going to be something that many of you are probably going to get very surprised by. But I do want to talk to you about voltages and VRM temperatures as best as I can do first. Voltages with the whole Intel debacle is something that I think we need to pay attention to. But if I'm completely honest, I have always paid attention to. I was saying the volts were wrong on 13th gen. When I did 14th gen reviews, I said I wasn't reviewing them without an undervolt. And I'm not blowing smoke up my own bottom, but it is just something I think it'd been glaringly obvious was wrong for quite some significant amount of time, which is why I did undervolting guides and stuff like that. But so I've paid attention to the volts that we've put through this. Now, I've tested all the boards with a 9900X. Yes, I do have the 9950X, but what I want to be able to do is compare performance across all of the boards that I do, rather than hamstringing some boards with the 9950. Not that the Tomahawk couldn't have coped with it, but just more about the fact I wanted there to be a relatively even playing field so that we could pick between. So the 9900X, still 2 CCXs, enable XMP, click run, don't mess around with any precision boost overdrive or anything like that. But I didn't think that any of the boards were not capable of being punished with a 9900X. The VRM temperatures were all very well into where I would expect. And as you can see, it's magically popped up. I've tested all of the boards with the brand new Be Quiet Light Base 900. The AIO that I used was the Light Loop 900 as well, which is a 360mm in the roof. And I've also used it with the 8mm offsets because on the CPU itself, the actual hottest part, the CCXs are right down the bottom of the die itself, like underneath the metal. They're right at the very bottom. So the 8mm offset moves the main cooling portion of the AIO closer to the hottest part of the CPU itself and actually does help keep the temperatures down. Now, I can't talk too much about the case because technically that is under NDA until the 10th of October. That is when the full review goes live, but I do have permission to have shown you it today, and all of the boards have been tested in there. Now, as you'll see, the VRMs didn't really suffer at all, not at all. Also, the CPU temps were very well kept, way within realms. And I was using a mixture of OCCT and Cinebench 24, which absolutely hates processors. And by that, I mean it does get them incredibly, incredibly hot. Yet the test setup was more than happy to keep up with it. And so were all the boards as well. And that's something that we do need to remember as I move. That is something that we do need to remember. The whole batch of them were able to cope with that 9900X. So if you're looking at any of these boards and thinking, especially the Tomahawk, could I put a 9900X on that board? Yeah, you could, because it's done really, really well. Now, Blender, do need to point out that our Blender run is 7 million polygons. Yeah, sure, that's a minute in seconds on there, by the way. So the 1080p takes 2 minutes and 40 seconds. That in itself is already an incredibly long and arduous Blender run as far as a benchmark is concerned. But as you can see, with our 4K run, is actually 9 minutes. So it's incredibly stressful. And normally when we do when we used to spend more time overclocking, if it passed the 4K Blender run, it was just absolutely perfect. But with our temperatures, with the CPU and the VRMs, what I've done is, yes, I've done a 30-minute Cinebench 24. Yes, I've done a 30-minute Limpack run on OCCT, but we also kept an eye on the temperatures with Blender, and it was the highest of all those 3 results that we ended up putting live. And if I'm honest, it was normally Cinebench, but it does give you an idea about the stressful nature that we have to go through to try and upset boards and pick between them. I was talking to you about voltages, and I didn't really go into it enough, if I'm honest. It kind of eluded me because I'm trying too hard to remember too many things. But weirdly, if I'm honest, I could almost have written that graph because I was expecting Gigabyte to put the highest through, the highest amount of volts. They always have done. And that goes back years. That's not a recent thing. Gigabyte have always been overly generous with the amount of volts that they put through CPUs. I'm more interested in the fact that Asus were in second place compared to MSI though, if I'm honest, because it used to be Asus's strong point that their BIOS was second to none. I'm going to make the statement now though, that Asus's BIOS may have been second to none, but Asus's BIOS is now second, because in my personal opinion, at the moment, and probably for the last couple of generations, MSI have really, really pulled their socks up. The UI for their BIOS is actually lovely. The simple side of it, where you can just go in and make very simple changes, is really cool. But the voltage suppression, the way their load line calibration works, so many things with MSI BIOS now is number one. It's something that all of the brands always want us to say, oh, say that we are the best. Weirdly, the MSI BIOS is the best at the moment. Asus have really kind of lost their way. I don't know what's happened in the BIOS team. I don't know what's happened with the engineers. But when they started listening to Intel, for example, 13th gen, and just following the white paper, that was the moment that they really fell down the ranks. And I think that kind of has shown so much. I know there's been so many things with RMAs and stuff, but Asus used to be at the forefront of having the best voltage regulation, like the way that everything worked and was simple. It was just, you couldn't argue with it. And it's not like that anymore. They are not bad boards though. Before I get like snipers outside my house and emails and phone calls, they are not bad boards. But when you break them down and actually compare apples for apples, they're not the best anymore. Maybe build quality wise, they might just have the edge, but when it comes to what actually makes all the componentry work in the background, MSI have got you back a lot more. And I think when you look at the performance, you'll see that when you put things in a graph and pick out minute details, you'll see that there is a lot of times where the little Tomahawk comes out on front, like Blender. It may only be 6 seconds, but it is 6 seconds faster than the Master. And then you've got the Carbon below it, and really worryingly, the Hero was at the bottom. With that Hero run, I gave it more than enough chances to reset the system, wait for things to warm up, well, not warm up, but settle down before I rerun it. The first time that I run the Hero in Blender, it was 10 minutes and 22 seconds. And 9:54 was the best out of 4 runs, I believe, I ended up doing, trying to find the best numbers. So it just couldn't even contend with Blender in the grand scheme of things. The Cinebench 24, as you can see again, the Asuses are a little bit further down. Okay, the Hero's there at 1786, but the Carbon was 1815, and then the Tomahawk was 1791. Now we do need to remember, if the prices of the, we don't know the Tomahawk, but I don't know, we'll have to see how that comes out. But if this comes out at 750, I would have wanted that to have been at the top of every possible graph, no matter what was happening. The gaming performance, you can see with Total Warhammer, this when we compared CPUs to CPUs, Total Warhammer has never been a particular fan of AMD. So the fact that we've only got the same processor with only the boards changing, you can see here that the Strix did pull out on front. It was only 0.4 of a frames per second difference, but it is still there. I have to be balanced, I have to be honest. You know, the Strix was better on this one. Gigabytes down at the bottom, Carbon, Elite. The only thing that I will say is, again, the Tomahawk did very well on this one. Then with Final Fantasy, you've got Tomahawk and Hero at the top again. Don't forget what I've said though, there are loads more results on the OC3D website. You can go and pick all of the graphs and everything apart there. The website now works with your mobile fine because we updated it. We have done more previews on the boards if you'd like to go and pick all the previews apart. But on the written reviews on the website, you'll see a full breakdown of everything on the boards as well. I just wanted to do some highlighting with these so that we could see that in the grand scheme of things, with a 9900X, there wasn't much to pick between them. One of the things I should have said at the start is I did use the most recent Agisa, I think it's 12.2.2 with the ROGs and the MSI. Gigabyte haven't put the latest Agisa into their BIOS yet. So they wanted me to use, I think it's 12.2.1. It definitely had a 1 at the end rather than a 2. I'll pop it up and I'll put it underneath just so that you know, but the details are on the website. But I did ask Gigabyte. They said, use the ones that are live. We are more than happy with the performance on that. It was a conscious choice from them. So they're a bit behind bringing the BIOS up to date, but they were not worried about performance. And if I'm completely honest, I think when you look at these, you can see that Agisa hasn't made a huge amount of difference, and I don't think an updated BIOS will put the Gigabytes to the top of the pack either. Deep breath. So, lots of testing, brand new AMD test rig. This will be the test rig now until, well, it'll be many long times because I've still got the other one there that we were doing X870 in. So I left it orange as well because it's kind of the Be Quiet branding, but the fans do come with it. There's light options. I can like literally make changes with a button. The light goes all the way round. You can turn it over so it lays down. If you want to see more about this, I did look at it at Computex. So it has been at shows. It has been on the show circuit. That is the 900. They're doing a 600 as well. I've probably said too much already. Anyway, I'm going to boil it straight down. Star of the show, Tomahawk. I don't know the price. It's a beautiful looking little board, but compared to what we're expecting some of the other boards' prices to be, this performed better than it should have done. We also need to remember this is the one that had the 80 amp phases. The VRMs didn't get too hot. I've punished this board to within an inch of its life, and it still put out stellar performance. So if you're looking at getting a 9900X, that is more than capable. I only think that you really need to start spending more money on other boards unless you're looking at a 9950X for a very long term. As in you are genuinely thinking 5 years plus with your processor and you want to milk as much out of it as you possibly can do, or you are going to be actively wanting to overclock and push boundaries. I think there is scope for overclocking, if I'm honest, but it's always going to come down to your processor. We didn't get enough time after the Agisa announcement for us to be able to do full sweeps of board reviews, because testing a board isn't a few hours. For me, it is an entire day just running benchmarks before I even start to think about tweaking things. So sadly, with short amount of time that we had, I've only managed to get 6 boards done. I can see another 4, 5 in my field of view now that I still need to do. But I've done the best that I can do. I hope that is good enough for you. The Hero, we're going to have to see about prices. If that does come in at 700 plus, that is a very, very difficult board to recommend right now, sadly. But also, it's not just the fact it's really expensive, but it's just because it's not bringing any extra performance to the table. And I'm struggling to see the need to want that over the Strix. So that's what I'm being balanced about it. It's just about if that's 750 and that's like 550, don't know what the prices are going to be. Where would I spend an extra £200? Probably not on the motherboard, especially with the data that's in the graphs, which is what at the end of the day we have to boil everything down to. I have got some lower end boards that are from Asus, so I've got the Tough, I've got the Prime. There are things that I am very much looking forward to playing with and trying to upset, but we will see. I have to see how things go. So that is it. We will imagine that the master is here. We're just going to have to imagine what prices and everything it was, but I would very much like to know your feedback underneath, please. You do get a Cherry Bakewell pie if you got to the end and you didn't skip, so congratulations. Please remember to like, subscribe and comment. Feedback underneath is always welcomed, but for now at least, this is the tiniest one with another video for you out. Love you, sis.